Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Concern Podcast, where we unpack political, socio-economic, and cultural stories shaping our world. I'm Emmanuel Taban, and on this section of our podcast, I want us to look at the story about the recently appointed Senior Presidential Envoy on special programs, the one for South Sudan, and I'm talking about Adut Salva Kiir Mayardit, the daughter to the President of the Republic of South Sudan, Salva Kiir Mayardit. And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, the most trending story on the internet back home in South Sudan has been about this amazing lady called Adut Salva Kiir Mayardit. And just last week, she has been meeting very prominent people, especially the entire presidency. Apart from her father, Salva Kiir Mayardit, she met all the vice presidents except Riek Machar, who is still under house detention. Adut met the vice president for the economic cluster, Dr. Benjamin Bolmel. She met the vice president for the infrastructure cluster, Taban Dengai. She met the vice president for the service cluster, Josephine Lagu. She also met the vice president for the gender and youth, cluster, which is Mama Rebecca Nyandeng. And she did not end there. She met the governor of Central Equatoria State. She also met the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Simaya Mande. And so many people have been wondering what all these meetings are for. And yeah, that has been a question that many people have been asking. Why is Adut meeting all these prominent people? But in this video, I will try to explain why I think Adut met these people and what might have been discussed in these meetings. And my analysis, or what I'm going to give here, is strictly my personal opinion, and it does not really tell exactly what might or what happened during that meeting, but I'm just trying to suggest what might have happened during that meeting. And my reasons here are based on the roles and responsibilities that these people have in their dockets, the vice presidents, and also the role that Adut is going to play. And I want us to start with the meeting where Adut met the vice president for the economic cluster, Dr. Benjamin Bolmel. She met Bolmel, and Bolmel holds a very, very prominent position, he leads very prominent cluster that constitutes some of the most powerful ministries, talking about the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Trade, Investment. And these are all very key ministries in any economy, and all these ministries fall under the docket that Dr. Benjamin Bolmel is actually supervising, which is the economic cluster. And therefore, the meeting between Adut Salva Kiir Mayardit and Benjamin Bolmel might have been just around issues to do with finances, because Adut knows very well that she will be tasked with responsibility of rehabilitation, providing very essential services to the people, and therefore it will be very, very unfortunate decision for her to ignore a very prominent person like Dr. Benjamin Bolmel, who holds these very important dockets. So the meeting that she made might be a very strategic one that is centered on finances, because he knows Bol controls most of the prominent ministries, and therefore the meeting might have been centered around issues to do with finances and things to do with the economy of the country, which is still very vital for any sector of the country to function. So I suggest, or I predicted, that the meeting between Adut and Benjamin Bolmel might have been just around that, but also could be around building relationship, a working relationship between the two. Only a few people can have that mind of establishing or building a very strong working relationship with other partners in the same government. And Adut, being a very young and exposed person, she might have come into the system with a very different mind of making a collaboration, working with each other, working with very different stakeholders, and that is very important for her. I think that is the reason why she met Dr. Benjamin Bolmel. But also, Mel is a very important or powerful person in the government. So I know she wouldn't really ignore Bolmel so much. So I feel that that meeting between Mel and Adut was centered on that. And the second meeting that happened was between Adut and Mama Rebecca Nyandeng, who is the vice president leading the women and youth cluster. And what might have happened there, and the reason why Adut met Mama Nyandeng is because one, I think you remember during her Thanksgiving ceremony, she recognized that she has very many mothers in the country, and one of the person who has been her inspiration is Mama Rebecca Nyandeng. And I feel that meeting was just a kind of appreciation, just to feel like, yeah, you are my mother too. But also being someone who is Mama Nyandeng, I mean, tasked with the responsibility of looking on at the youth and women cluster, very prominent position. And one of the responsibilities that Adut will be actually running is things to do with women and youth empowerment. So meeting Rebecca Nyandeng is, I would say, is a very strategic meeting. If I told you there were some discussions, they are going to be, they were centered on youths and women empowerment. And that is one important responsibility that Adut will be delivering, actually, that she is tasked with, things to do with women and youth empowerment. It's one of the things that her docket is going to be running. And therefore, meeting Mama Rebecca Nyandeng, I would say, was very strategic. That is about Nyandeng. The next meeting that Adut Salva Kiir had was with the vice president of the infrastructure cluster, and that is Tabandengai. You know, again, the reason why I said that meeting was also very strategic, and I feel that really Adut had planned that very well. All her meetings seems to have been strategically planned, and they were not irrelevant. They were very, very, very relevant, because one of the responsibilities that Adut is tasked with is to look at things of rehabilitation of infrastructures, infrastructure rehabilitations, those infrastructures that might have been destroyed due to the civil war. She's tasked with rehabilitating them. And therefore, meeting Taban Dengai, who is the one leading the infrastructure cluster, was very strategic and prominent. She might have had discussions around things to do with infrastructures, and you know, Taban Dengai supervising ministries to do with road and bridges and all this. You know, that was a very strategic. So if they were meeting, I mean, if there were issues that were discussed during the meeting between Taban Dengai and Adut, then they might have been centered around things to do with infrastructure. And I bet the reason why Adut met Taban Dengai, it is because of that, because they want to establish a working relationship between the two, so they can have, or Adut can have her role or her work done in a most appropriate and best way. Because as I say, that she's a fairly young person and an exposed person, she probably had a very different way of working. She wants to establish a relationship, which is very important for any person to succeed in any position that they're in. If you establish working collaborations, then you are deemed to succeed in your position. So that meeting must have been centered on things to do with infrastructure development and rehabilitation, which is one of the responsibilities that Taban Dengai is tasked with, and also Adut will be doing, or she would be running. And now the next meeting that Adut had was with the vice president of the service cluster, who is none other than Josephine Lagu. So Josephine Lagu being, and also during the meeting with Josephine Lagu, Adut had the chance to meet the Anyanya 1 veteran, who is Joseph Lagu, the father to Josephine Lagu. And they had a very good meeting, by the way. She showed a kind of humility which is exceptional, and I appreciate that. That was very good. And the reason why I feel Adut met Josephine Lagu is because since Josephine Lagu is the one that is heading the docket to do with service cluster, and one of the responsibilities also that Adut will be delivering is to look at the provision of essential social services to war-affected areas. So the reason why that meeting was very strategic, because she knows very well that if she wants to deliver services to those war affected area, then therefore she must be working or having a kind of relationship, working relationship with the vice president that is heading the service cluster, and that is none other than Josephine Lago. Very strategic one as well. And all those meetings were centered, I mean, they are not far from all the responsibilities that Adut will be playing. They are strategically planned, and I think these are some of the best meetings that I've ever seen any leader having them. Like very strategic, well planned. They are not offline. Very, 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 very well planned. And another reason why I feel Adut met Josephine Lago is because I've just learned that Josephine Lago will actually be leading a delegation to Washington, D.C., I think, for the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly, that is going to happen on the 9th of September. Now, on the second week of every September of every year, the United Nations General Assembly meets, I think, in Washington to discuss issues to do with the United Nations and on all those sort of things that are affecting the world. And therefore, because some of the vice president like Benjamin Mel and Tabandinga are still under the sanction according to the U.S. Office of Foreign Asset Control and the Department of Treasury, I feel that Kiir wouldn't delegate Mel or Tabandinga to lead the delegation to the United States. And she actually delegated Josephine Lago to go and lead South Sudan in the UNGA, or the United Nations General Assembly. So the other reason why Adut might have met Josephine Lago is that, I wouldn't be surprised if I see Adut among the delegation that would be headed by Josephine Lago to go to Washington, D.C., or I think New York City, for the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly. So they might have met also to discuss issues to do with the delegation that is going to go to United States for the United Nations General Assembly. So I feel that was one of the reasons. But also, during meeting with Josephine Lago, Adut had a chance to meet with the veteran Nyanya soldier, Joseph Lago, and that was a good one. There was another meeting that happened between Josephine Lago and Adut. I feel there's nothing much that was discussed between the two other than just sharing experiences and appreciation. Probably Lago might have shared his previous experiences and how they might have actually struggled during the Anyanya war of liberation, but also gave his appreciation to Adut for congratulations to Adut for the appointment, and might have also just gave some simple advice on how she would deliver her services to the people. And the other meeting that happened was between Adut and Smaya Mande, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Very strategic. I don't know if you guys notice how these meetings are very strategic and they're so much alike to the role that Adut will be playing. I think I just see some difference in Adut, but let's see what's going to happen. But I feel that she's doing things in a very different way. I don't know if you guys are noticing, but all the meetings that she had last week were very strategic according to me, and they were all very important. The meeting between Adut and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mande Simaya, was very strategic in the sense that because Adut will be dealing with very, very, very important roles. I mean, she will be running she's tasked with very important responsibilities, things to do with infrastructure, rehabilitation of war-affected areas, women and youth empowerment, delivery of essential services to war-affected areas. And these roles, to be played effectively, they really need interventions from some humanitarian organizations that probably might be international humanitarian organizations. And to have that, you need a country to have a very good status that is being seen by the outside world as, just a very different perspective. The world sees you in a very good stage, and that thing can only be set by the Minister of Foreign Affairs or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the responsibility of Ministry of Foreign Affairs is such that they paint the country in a way that looks attractive to the outsiders. And therefore, the meeting between Adut, and one might ask, out of all the 32 ministers, why is it that Adut chose to meet Smaya Mande, the Minister of Foreign Affairs? very strategic, very strategic. Adut understood the importance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in shaping the image of the country to look attractive to the people outside, or in persuading people outside so they can have interest in actually delivering services to the people in South Sudan. So the meeting between Adut and Mande was very strategic in a sense that they might have been centered around reshaping the image of South Sudan, but also using the ministry to go and persuade humanitarian organizations so they can come and provide services or collaborate with the docket that Adut is going to run so they can help deliver services to the South Sudanese and those people in the IDP and even in the refugee camps, and to do with things about resettlement, because one of the roles that Adut will be playing is to do with resettlement of displaced persons. So I feel Adut cannot do that alone without help of some humanitarian organization, of which this humanitarian organization can only be persuaded through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. See that? So that was very strategic. That was a very, very strategic meeting between Adut and Sumaya Mande, very strategic one. And the next meeting that she had, probably this will be my final one, is between Adut and the governor of Central Equatoria State. Now again, one might ask, why Governor Mujung? Why not all other governors? I know by times you'd have the chance to meet other governors, but why she met the governor of Central Equatoria State is because that was very strategic. You know, Juba is an administrative area. All the government institutions are based in Juba, and therefore it would be unfortunate for Adut to ignore the importance of the governor of Central Equatoria State, who would be very influential in other decisions, you know. And the meeting that she had with governor of Central Equatoria State probably was just about, just for exposure, but also to develop some working collaborations between the government of Central Equatoria State and also Adut's department, a very important one. So I feel all the meetings that Adut had previously with, this week with the different and prominent members of government was very strategic, well planned, and meant to serve a purpose. And so many people were giving out their opinions that if Adut is really going to be a good leader, they want to see her also meet the vice president, Dr. Machar, who is in detention. But I think this might be out of her power, because I think Machar is under restriction, and not just any other person can meet Machar. But she might get the privilege because she is a daughter to Kiir. But also, if she really want a very good reconciliation, I think she would probably take the step to go and meet Machar even in detention. But just for the purpose of this video, I feel that the meeting that Adut had, the meetings that she had with Dr. Benjamin Bolmer, with Mama Nyandeng, with Tabandengai, with Josephine Lagu, with Sumaya Mande, and all the other, the governor of Central Equatoria, that these were all very prominent and they're well calculated meetings. The meeting with Bolmer was centered around finances and the economy. The meeting with Josephine Lagu was centered around service delivery and representation in the Unga coming assembly. And the meeting with Tabandengai was probably centered around rehabilitation of infrastructure. The meeting with who else? The governor of Central Equatoria State is centered around realizing the importance of the governor in influencing some decisions that are going to be done within the state. And the meeting with Sumaya Mande probably is centered around reshaping the image of the country through the foreign Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So these were all strategic meetings, and I feel let's give it to Adut, and let's see what is ahead of her, what she is going to do. And I feel Adut is well exposed and she's strategic according to me, but let's see in fullness of time what she's going to do. And thank you so much again. I remain Emmanuel Taban. This is the Concern Podcast, and if this is your first time getting to learn about this channel, please just leave a subscription or hit on the notification button so you can get notified of other videos that are going to come in the near future. And until next time, I remain Emmanuel Taban.